Let's take a look at the Supreme Court Justice nominee here on Common Sense. The nominee that President Trump has chosen to replace Justice Kennedy in the Supreme Court wasn't known until he chose him. And the protesters outside the Supreme Court, they didn't know until he chose him. And yet they were protesting whoever it was going to be, because they knew it was going to be a conservative, and he was going to take away Roe versus Wade, the trial case that deemed abortion legal. Now, once they did find out who President Trump had nominated, then they filled in their signs, "We don't want this guy," in the Supreme Court, because he was going to ruin the execution, murder, butchering, whatever you want to call it, of unborn children. And we have to have murdering, butchering, killing, execution of unborn children. We have to have it. But let's say that it does come up somewhere down the line, and they do decide to take another look at Roe v. Wade, and they do determine that life begins at the point of conception, which it does. And they overturn Roe v. Wade, and they say, no, you cannot just go have an abortion. It's murder. It's illegal. Gosh, what would that do to the attitude of the people of the United States? Perhaps the people would see that we as a country respect life. We revere life. We give life the highest respect, which it should have. Every human life begins at conception, and every human life should have a chance at living. Killing for the sake of, I don't want that, that's not right at all. At all, that's not right. Because if it was right, you could walk up behind somebody with a loaded handgun and just shoot them in the back of the head. They would die, not feeling a thing, which is one of the biggest excuses that abortionists and pro-choice or pro-butchering, murdering, killing people use. Well, they can't feel it, but you're taking life. You are making the decision. You are saying, I am God. I am the one that decides who gets to live, who has to die. And it's not women's health. It has absolutely nothing to do with women's health. If you don't want an infant, one, don't have sex. Two, use contraception prior to and during sex. But the best way to not become pregnant is abstinence. Don't have sex. Gosh. Well, then what good is that? What fun is life if you're not having sex with everybody and everything you can? Well, you know you're not going to get a disease. You know you won't get pregnant. You know that because you got married before you had sex, the man has already accepted the responsibility of raising a family, and he's not just going to leave you somewhere with a child. Or the opposite, which I have heard is more like what's going on. These women have children. They don't want the man around because they want the kid and they want the money. But then once the kid gets old enough, they don't care about the kid. And the kid goes out, finds a handgun, and gets shot, killed, dead. That's it. Lady, you get normal money for having that kid. And do you care? Oh, no, you can make some more. Make more. You know, if it was me, and I was the king, let's say, and women were getting pregnant and not allowing the men to be in the lives of them and their children to make a family, I would say that the woman were to be fixed so that she could not feel any kind of sexual activity, any, because all she wants is the kid to have money. And that's not what this country is about. It's not about, oh, I'm going to have a kid, you have to pay for it. I'm not responsible for it. No, this country was built on you are responsible for your actions. You are. And so if you have a child, you, person, are responsible for the upbringing and the care of that child, which means you need to get a job. You need to work to pay for that child. Now, part of that is where abortion comes in. Well, they don't want the responsibility for the child. They don't want the child. They don't want the money. They don't want anything. Let's murder it. Because I was irresponsible in my actions having unprotected sex and having no contraception. And so I don't want it. Well, let's say somebody walked up behind you with a pistol and blew your head off. Okay, your parents would be upset that that happened. But then the person that shot you could say, well, I didn't want her. Well, I didn't want her. I didn't want her. She was costing me responsibility. She was costing me money. She was just, I didn't want her, so I shot her. She didn't feel it, and now she's gone. And it's okay. Is that right? Is that what right is? But you know, if you took away the idea that killing children is okay, then the rest of society would come around to thinking, you know, maybe we should respect life. And in respecting life, we respect others. And in respecting others, there are fewer murders and fewer violent acts. Respecting one another. Do you think? I think that if Roe v. Wade was overturned and there was a stricter moral standard in this country would be a lot better. A lot better. Of course, if you took away pornography, drugs, premarital sex, if you took away a lot of things, this country would be in so much better shape. So, in President Trump's choice of Supreme Court Justice, from what I've seen so far of the man, he seems honorable. he seems as though he has a strong integrity, a moral value. Yes, morals are important, and we don't make our own morals. Morals come from God and God alone. And God says, "Thou shalt not murder," and abortion is murder. But let's get past the abortion thing. There are a lot more things to be discussed and heard and opinions to be made about than Roe v. Wade. And I don't know why people are so paranoid about this country being moral and having some integrity and living a clean life, a life that is good. You don't know what this new Supreme Court justice is going to be like because he hasn't been on the bench in the Supreme Court yet. And it's like, how do you know that life isn't good with God if you haven't tried it? It's like saying you don't like broccoli, although you've never eaten it. How do you know? You don't. Sometimes you got to try. And sometimes you got to give things time. Let's see what happens. Let's not jump to conclusions like the liberal Democrats want you to. All they're doing is feeding you lines of BS, pumping sunshine. It's just ridiculous. They have lost. Basically, what they're saying is we've lost all hope of any kind of power back in the United States so that they can run this country into the ground and make it back to nothing again. The people of this country have worked hard and have fought hard to keep the freedoms of this country. And part of that integral piece of the entire puzzle of the United States is the Supreme Court. And I believe President Trump made an excellent choice in nominating who he did for the Supreme Court. That's all I've got for now, and I ask that you pray for the leadership of this country, that they will follow God closely to guide this country to safety, security, prosperity, peace, and unity. We need unity under God. I'm William Ferguson, and this is Common Sense.